Now that you're not Grumpy Chris anymore?
God, I'm like the Hulk, man. I'm always grumpy Chris.
I'm Michael,
I'm Chris.
and we're Breaking Impossible. I got a lot of feedback from people trying to defend keto.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah. Do you know the history of the keto diet?
But who is the guy who like popularized it?
The guy who actually created it originally was a doctor called Russell Wilder. For 1,000 years, even maybe 2,000 years, in Western science and also in Eastern tradition, um, fasting has been used in order to try to gain health benefits.
Fair enough.
And specifically, it was known, even in the time of Hippocrates, that you could use it to reduce the number of seizures that epileptics would have.
Seriously, I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. In the 20s, a doctor came up with with the keto diet in order to treat people with epilepsy.
Seriously. Okay, I did not know any of this. I really was
Yeah.
confusing it with something else.
Yeah, no, it's a very specific medical intervention. And it was used to treat epileptics until they started having pills that could be used. And then doctors started prescribing those medicines instead because the keto diet is very difficult to follow in a strict manner if you're doing it the right way.
Mm.
So I need to say
But sorry, the
that
keto diet is the one that's like mostly like they cut out all the carbs, like eat a hamburger
yes,
without the bun, right? Okay. Okay.
it's a low carb, it's an extreme version of a low carb diet. There are a lot of bodybuilders that follow what they think is a keto diet, but it's high in protein, and that won't get you into ketosis. That's not a proper keto diet. A proper keto diet is actually very high in fat.
Interesting.
Yeah. And anyway, we're not doctors, we're not nutritionists. We shouldn't be giving people advice, but it seemed to me when this started becoming popularized in the media and all the rest of it that it was not a good idea because you're eating a lot of fats and you're not getting fruits and vegetables, and we know we need fruits and vegetables. So I should say that as a medical intervention, if a doctor prescribes a keto diet to you, you may be benefiting from it, whether you have epilepsy or some other mental disorder. In fact, there's a book called Brain Energy by Christopher Palmer. He's a Harvard psychiatrist who, in addition to prescribing meds, also sometimes prescribes a keto diet, among other things, in the
Links to
treatment
the
of
books
people
in the comments below.
with mental disorders. Yeah. So I think it's something that somebody can use, some people can use, and it will benefit them, but it's not for everybody. And I think it's a kind of a fad. In a similar way, that
Like
the
I
Atkins
said,
fad. What's that?
sorry, what in a similar way as what is a fad?
That the Atkins diet was a fad?
That's who I'm thinking of.
Yes.
That's who I'm thinking of.
Also a
So
low carb diet.
that's what I was conflating it with. Yes, and there
Yeah.
is a
So
Mr. Atkins.
yes. And so these people who are advocates of low carb diets and keto diets are very passionate about it. And I think one of the reasons is if you do a keto diet or a low carb diet and you lose a bunch of weight at the beginning, you get that positive reinforcement. Oh, look, I lost a bunch of weight. This must be good. But people don't generally tend to stay on those diets for very long because they're very hard to follow.
Isn't that
There's,
isn't that
there's
true of
another,
most diets though?
yes, this is true of most diets. So Peter Attia just wrote a book called Outlive, The
Outlive.
Science and
Okay.
Art of Longevity. I just started it.
Books in the comments below, people.
He did a keto diet, a strict one for 3 years, but then he quit because he missed certain things in his diet that he wanted to eat that he craved, and also because it's hard to follow the diet exactly. So
I couldn't give up pretzels and potato chips. I just couldn't.
well, this is, it's kind of similar to the way we talk about the 12 tools. These are things that you and I are doing that help us stay active, right? They help us stay active. They may or may not work for somebody else, or maybe some of the 12 tools will help people become and
Well,
stay
and,
more active. right?
as we've talked about it, that's the difference between your 12 tools methodology and my be aware methodology, which is
Well,
more
I think
vague, but I think more applicable. But that's just me.
no, I think you're exactly right. I think we actually don't disagree. I think that the 12 tools are principles that you and I use. Anyway, we've also talked about, or maybe we haven't. Have you heard of Lane Norton?
No.
Lane Norton has a YouTube channel called BioLane. He's a power lifter, and I think he did his PhD in protein synthesis. He does this one particular thing. It's called What the Fitness, where he debunks other people's YouTube videos where they're making false claims. And his most recent rant was making fun of the people who do ice baths.
Ah,
And I'm going to include it because it's hysterically funny. I laugh for 10 minutes afterwards. It's
and
a,
is
it's
it?
another fad that's trending right now. People doing ice baths and taking video of it and putting it
Wait,
on social media.
is this the whole like you'll turn your fat brown into brown fat or whatever? That whole
So
thing?
again,
Or is it for
it's just like
anti-inflammation? Like what's? I have no idea
yes,
of this trend. I have not even heard of this thing.
it's another fad. So it's been popular. Actually, it's been around for a while. Wait, I should go back. I've done these sorts of things being a martial artist. In my martial arts tradition, it's not unusual for us to do things like work out barefoot in the snow or stand under a
Sure.
waterfall. Or I remember one time I led a team of black belts down in San Diego in the winter. We all stripped down to our
It,
underwear and jumped in the ocean at my behest.
in
What's
San
that?
Diego, the winter.
Well, it was cold in the water.
Uh
But
huh.
anyway, we did it as a way of
Next time, my
trying.
background is going to be Sweden in the winter, where you can't actually jump in the water in the winter because it's hard.
Yes. Well, you can crack a hole in the ice and jump in.
Well, that's where we'll talk about that because is that an ice bath? Is it doing anything? I don't know.
That would be the
People do
same
it
thing.
here all the time.
So the idea of using ice baths themselves for anti-inflammation has been popularized by a lot of people in the running community. A lot of distance runners have used it.
Mm,
And I think it has its place. I think for some people it will provide a benefit. I don't necessarily think it's the right thing to do frequently. I don't do it. There are reasons why I don't do it. I think a certain amount of inflammation is a good thing. It's your body healing itself. You don't want to necessarily get rid of that. It may be appropriate for a professional athlete that needs to recover very quickly because it's the time of season that they need to get back into the game or whatever. They've got another competition coming up and they want to try to recover faster. But long term, I don't think it's necessarily the best thing to do. For me, and this is the thing we talk about, on average, and for each individual, these protocols are going to be different, right?
yeah,
But yes,
protocols.
it's become a fad. There are benefits of getting into ice cold water up to your neck for 5 minutes at a time in terms of things that happen with hormones, and it'll make you feel good and may have some potentially benefits for your mental well-being if nothing else. But it's a fad,
So
and the whole idea
how
of
cold is
bragging about it
cold,
on
by the
social
way?
media is the thing that Norton makes fun of. Filled with
Okay.
filled with ice.
Ice water. Okay, so it's actually ice
Yeah,
water.
yeah, very, very cool. Now you can do the same thing just taking cold showers. It's not quite as strong, but there's certainly some benefits from taking cold showers. There's certainly some benefits from doing ice baths, but they're
The
not going to change
primary.
you. They're not going to change your world in the way that people make it sound like they are when they're doing it on social media. But I got to tell you, we're talking about fads and people doing strange or funny things in order to try to improve their health. Remember, I talked about Brian Johnson.
Vaguely, yes.
He did that interview with Lex Friedman. He's the guy that spends millions of dollars trying to reverse his
Oh, the
biological
perfect
age.
sleep thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the perfect sleep thing. I rewatched that interview, and I also watched another interview with somebody who went to his house and worked out with him one day and followed his protocols. I hate to admit it, but I think I advocate for a lot of the same kind of things and have a lot of the same ideas that he does, but maybe on a little bit of more of a low tech
Approach.
uh, approach. Yeah. And I think that's another important thing too for the Breaking Impossible and for the 12 tools. I think what we're doing is helping us and we're sharing that with people so that they might get some of the same benefits if they choose to do some of those things on their own.
Yeah.
But I would like to be able to say that whatever we're doing doesn't require a gym membership or a piece of high tech equipment or anything else. It just requires understanding the mechanism about the reasons why we do the things we do.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Right.
So I think, yeah, it's funny. I was talking to a colleague at work who is he has decided like he doesn't need his Garmin smart scale,
Mm-hmm.
which was an opportunity for me to talk about how much Garmin is my nemesis. Um, and it was funny. We wound up talking about like how useless so much of that data is and how unuseful so much of it is, and that it doesn't really help you. That ultimately, I said specifically about running. Like ultimately, if you're running further and faster and feeling more comfortable, you're
Yes.
healthier. That's all you
Yes.
really need.
Yes.
And the rest is just for fun. Like it is just there to make you feel good and feel a little more precise. But honestly, it's all about the experience of the thing.
Yeah.
Um, which, of course, I have the whole article on the website about perceived exertion and its
Mm-hmm.
ability to help you in your training,
Mm-hmm.
linked to CDC reports and linked to
Mm-hmm.
other medical reports, which, of course, we're not doctors, but we do our best to listen to doctors. So,
Speaking of the CDC, since we're talking about how we're not doctors, another thing that you and I did is we speculated about the cause of the obesity epidemic in our
mm,
last video.
mm.
And I said the ready availability of calories, processed food with its calorie dense. And I don't remember what you said. You said something similar.
I don't remember specifically, but yes,
Yes.
something
Well,
similar indeed.
the CDC says something that surprised me when I looked it up because I started to be curious about how accurate we were. Many factors contribute to excess weight gain, including eating patterns, activity levels, and sleep routines.
Oh,
Social determinants of health, genetics, and taking certain medications may also play a role. So sleep was listed, and I was surprised by that.
I'm no longer surprised by that at all. I mean, just the whole realm of sleep and sleep quality in the last 5 years has raised quite a bit. For me, like my uncle in way back in the day used to work in a hospital sleep lab, and I just remember like so many people being like, "Well, that's really weird. Who everybody just sleeps? You just sleep, just sleep." And so the fact that people would be studying such a thing. I mean, this is decades ago, right? But no, but I'm just trying to like the societal reflection on that. And then recently, like you just see it in the health section of the newspaper, and then recently, like in the last 5 or 7 years. And then when you look at like what we're talking about, it's not quite mainstream yet, but it's like close. It's mainstream adjacent. Like people who are trying to be healthy seem to start more and more with sleep,
Yeah,
which is societally new, in my
there's
opinion.
there's another new thing, and it's the low to no movement for alcohol consumption.
Yes, that's right. Well, I mean that's not new. After all, maybe you've heard of prohibition.
Point.
But yeah, for health reasons, because that was actually for social reasons. Because it turns out drunk guys had tended to beat their wives back in the day. That's why all
I
the
think they
mothers
still.
against.
I
Yeah, I
think
mean
they
that.
still do.
But I will have to look up the links, everyone. Hopefully, they will find their way into the comments. But many of the women who got behind the prohibition movement were societal groups trying to prevent domestic violence.
Mm-hmm. So remember to go outside, do hard things, and keep moving forward.
We'll see you out there.